Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chia and it is time for a monthly wrap up, but this time for July. I did not read as much in July as I normally do in the past few months. It's summer. I know that I really slow down my reading during summertime because it's too hot and I love to be cozy and cuddled up in a blanket or on my couch or whatever when I'm reading. I had some family coming in as well as Comic-Con was this month too, so I had all those events going on in July, but I hope to read more in August. Since August, I'm going to be preparing for a lot of fall reads. A lot of anticipated releases are coming out starting in September, so I'm preparing myself for that. As usual, let's get started with my stats. So in total for July, I read about 6 books. 3 of them were fantasy, 2 of them were contemporary romances, and 1 was a literary fiction. I did read 4 out of the 5 of my July TBR. If you want to know about my more in-depth thoughts about my 4 books that I read for my July TBR, I'll link my vlog that I just recently posted. It was the one before this one. But yeah, I read 4 out of the 5. There was only 1 book I didn't get to, which was Daggermouth. I'm hoping to either pick that up this month, or if not, then maybe towards my fall reads, because I feel like it's a nice fall read. I don't know why. And in total, I read about 2,409 pages, and all of them are physical books, so I'm knocking down a lot of physical books off of my shelf right now, which I'm really excited about. Some of them, actually majority of them, were misses, but I'm glad it came out with a couple that were above 4 stars. Some of them are 4.5, but otherwise the other ones were kind of a dud or average, or I just didn't vibe with anything that was happening in the story. And it shows in my rating because my average rating for all 6 books was about 3.46. So July wasn't my best reading month at all. You will see when I go over all the books, so let's get started. I'm going to do something different for this month. Since I have a shorter amount of books, I have a chance to do this. Instead of going where I normally go, where I just talk about each book as I read them throughout the month, I'm going to be talking about them as a rank. So starting from worst to best. So the worst book that I read this month, which is the only literary fiction that I read this month, June Baby by Shannon Garvey. This one is a debut novel for her. This is her first book. It released in May. This story is centered on grief and our only character POV as she navigates grief, but not only grief from when she lost her mom when she was a kid, but also navigating losing a person who was important to her that was a pseudo mom for her. So we follow a character named Ruth, I believe her name is. I keep forgetting her name. First chapter is she's 17. She unfortunately just loses her mom, and instead of her dad dealing with her and also healing through their grief together, he doesn't know what to do with her, and so he sends her off to somebody named Diana. And she spends the summer on Block Island every single summer for 10 years, and in 10 years fast forward, which is present day right now, she unfortunately loses Diana. She kind of uses Block Islands as a mean to escape her life, to escape her grief, to escape the relationship or lack thereof that she has with her dad, as well as her constant feelings of being lonely. And so she's working as a waitress, and when people ask her what her plans are for the future, if there's any plans for her to want to leave the island or anything, she just comes out with basically nothing because her grief is just all encompassing every single thing that she feels. While she is attending the funeral of Diana, she is finding that she is lacking connection with the rest of the family members. The only other person that she's kind of close to from Diana's family is her nephew. And her nephew, Charlie, has always visited every single summer when Ruth was there. He spends a week or 2 there before he goes off to college or whatever. And I guess throughout all these summers that they've spent together, they've developed attractions to each other and everything. And that's what Ruth kind of clings to after she loses Diana. She comes to this decision that she wants to tell Charlie how she feels, and unfortunately it just kind of unravels from there because she finds a lot of revelations out that she never knew from her relationship with Diana. She doesn't know how to deal with everything, so instead of dealing with her emotions or her grief or anything that's overwhelming her, she tries to block it out with just trying to either spending time with Charlie, and there's also some little romances that she has on the island with another guy or whatever. I liked the writing and I loved the feelings that it's captured in the writing by Shannon Garvey, and it was a good enough debut novel. I didn't think it was terrible necessarily. I just didn't like our main character. She just read so young to me, and she was so stubborn that she didn't want to move on from anything else that she was experiencing on the island, that she was grasping grasping at straws by grasping onto her feelings with Charlie. The way it was written is that we never truly knew what their connection was. It was telling more than showing. We never really saw how much time they spent together over summer. We just got like little glimpses here and there of, oh, this is my relationship with Charlie. This is how I feel about him. And you should just believe it because I say that this is what it is. But you always got the greater sense that like she never really kind of felt anything strong for him. It's just, like I said, she was grasping at straws. And I just felt she was making dumb decisions after dumb decisions, and she always used her grief as the reason why she made these dumb decisions, but it just didn't excuse anything that she did. Like, it just didn't excuse anything. And like, I get it, she was feeling all of these things, and it just like was jumping around to too many different topics. And instead of like deep diving into her grief and not only losing her mom but also losing her next pseudo mom, as well as like trying to figure out her relationship with her father, instead she uses the fact that, you know, she's trying to feel things for Charlie and then using that as a band-aid. And then also when she's not getting what she wants from Charlie, then all of a sudden she goes over to the person that she's kind of been hooking up with over the past like couple of summers. But the thing is that she was never willing to grow up. I just felt like she was just so unwilling to change. And when you were expecting some sort of growth, or at least like some sort of revelation or something for her to kind of like get over all of the stuff that she was feeling, it just got patched up really quickly at the end. I just felt like there was nothing really fixed in this whole entire story, and I was just rolling my eyes every single time she did something that was like even more terrible than the last decision that she made. It just didn't seem right to me, all the stuff that she was doing. And there's a trope in here that I just didn't like. I did like the environment of it. I loved like the whole entire like Rhode Island summer that she was being on. I just didn't get enough growth from her, and also there was just like really no point to the story. So unfortunately I gave it a 2 stars. Like, it was bordering like the 3-star range halfway through because I really did like the writing. It's just that she got worse and worse as the story went on. Bumped it down to the 2-star range because I just didn't see the point if it was just gonna get patched up really easily like that. So I definitely do not recommend this at all, and I should have paid attention to the reviews online because a lot of people did not like this book. Now moving on to Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune. I came into this with like not necessarily high expectations, but like a correct amount of expectations. I first read Every Summer Will Be Different. I just didn't like that book. I just didn't like the romance, so I came into this thinking that I might like this romance a little bit better, because what I've heard is that people who are Carly Fortune fans did not like this book, but the books that they like from Carly Fortune I didn't necessarily like. So this is a contemporary romance. She is a Canadian author. I want to say that she is, because she sets everything in Canada. The last one was set in Prince Edward Island. This is set more in the Pacific Northwest, especially the place they go to for the trip and everything for the honeymoon, which is in Tofino. So we follow a character named Frankie. She is set to get married, and she has a best friend named George. They've known each other since they were 8, and she's going to marry somebody else. Sort of like an age gap. He is like 10-15 years older than her, so it's the day of her wedding and she ends up getting left at the altar. The fiance only leaves her a note trying to say that he can't do this, so she becomes like super depressed for like a couple months. So George insists on them going to the honeymoon that she was supposed to go with her supposed to be husband. So she and her best friend George spend like a week over there, and she mainly wants to go on the honeymoon to not only get over the, you know, heartbreak, but also she's finding that she and George have had sort of like a chasm in their relationship for the past couple of years, so she wants to go back to the way they were. Every chapter like alternates between the past and the present, like the year that they first met, the year when they went through like teenagehood, and supposedly they had like this big huge fight last Christmas or something. They keep alluding to that, and so we go about that and we find out more about like their relationship as the years go on. And George, he is also a journalist, and he follows like a lot of like hard-hitting stories. Like, for example, there was a fire that was going around Canada for a good like few months, and he ended up going out there to cover that story. Frankie is a sort of like chef or recipe creator for this like influencer or something, but she's not really happy with that because she feels she's being restricted because the recipe she's cooking is mainly for the influencer instead of like being creative again, and she misses that creativity, so she's going through that too. The story is that like they start getting feelings for each other over the week. I just felt like I loved the setting. What Carly Fortune does really good is like put you into the environment and make you feel like you were there. This is perfect prime summer book. I loved that part of it, and I loved the little activities they did. They went hiking, they like did surf lessons, I believe they did, and I loved the exploration of Tofino. And also there's like a bunch of references of whales over here, because there's this whole entire story of Frankie kind of having resentment towards her mom because her mom kind of abandoned them for a couple of years to follow out on the East Coast to go study whales. She's always had this resentment against whales, and she keeps mentioning that over and over. Every single time anyone mentions anything about whales, apparently everyone has an obsession with whales in this book. Her mom and George have bonded over their love for whales, and every single time any whale references were brought up, she would roll her eyes and hate it, and she would be adamant about hating these freaking whales. And then every time she comes across someone who loves whales, she'll tell them she doesn't like whales, and they'll be so shocked that she doesn't like whales. That was such a huge prominent part of it, and I just didn't like the multiple references to that, as well as she kept comparing to the choices of her life plus like the love interest that she's had to people in Little Women. The Little Women is like one of her favorite movies of all time. She constantly watches it and compares her life to Little Women. I think the biggest reason why I didn't like this book and rolled my eyes majority of the time is Frankie. She just read very immature, and I just didn't like how she reacted to a lot of things, especially when it came about to when she started getting revelations about certain things, especially when she finds out like the problem about the third act conflict, and then that was like the whole entire reason why the third act conflicts happened. And I just didn't think that the reasoning that she had towards being angry was good enough. And she's a hothead too. Every single time anyone gave her any advice, or if like anyone brought up like a relationship with her mom or anything, she would get so mad and try to shut anybody down, especially like when she says that George knows her the best, and then whenever he says anything to her, she gets really upset about the fact that he doesn't understand. But then the next scene she'll be like, oh, George is the only one who knows me, he's the only one who gets me, you know, and I miss having that sort of relationship with him, and yada yada yada. She realized too many things too late, and I just feel like I think George honestly deserved better. I feel like he was the one putting more effort into their friendship than she was, and every single time, like I said, he gave her advice about anything, she would bite his head off and say that he didn't understand. I don't know, I just didn't get their relationship. I don't think like Frankie put up enough effort, in my opinion, to deserve anything that he's done. And also I just felt like she was so obtuse to all the stuff that was going on, because literally every single other person in her life, her friends, her close family, all of them knew and could see what was happening, but she couldn't see anything. She was very like her head in the sand, like freaking ostrich. Yeah, my biggest problem was Frankie. Everything else I actually really liked. If Frankie like was more mature for me, or at least got to the stage of being mature enough after like the whole entire things that she found out, I would have liked it more, but she was the detriment to it, and for that reason I gave it a 3 stars. I will still pick up more of Carly Fortune's books. I'm still really curious about Every Summer After, as well as One Golden Summer. Obviously, if I don't like Every Summer After, I'm not going to move on to One Golden Summer, since apparently it focuses on the same brothers in those books. I don't think like her writing is necessarily bad, it's just it doesn't include enough for me to give it a higher rating, if that makes sense. But unfortunately, this was like my second like lowest book of this month. And then this book next is like my only fantasy romance of this month. I decided to pick up The Witch Collector because it was a part of my July TBR, and the main character Reina has a disability. She has always been mute, and she's learned how to do sign language to speak to other people. Her immediate family obviously learned to use like sign language for her, so she has like magical powers, but she has been hiding it for all her life, because there's this thing in their village where the Witch Collector is sent by the Frost King to come collect a witch, and in order for them to not choose her, she hides her powers. I think 8 years ago her sister was taken by the Witch Collector, and she hasn't seen her since then. And so she makes this plan where she has this weapon called the God Knife that was given to her by her dad before he passed away. She said she's going to use this in order for her to kind of threaten the Witch Collector to take her to her sister. But unfortunately, all those plans kind of like go awry, because her village ends up getting attacked by their common enemy, which is the Eastlanders, and she has to rely on the Witch Collector to not only get her out, but also to get her somewhere safe, and she wants to go see her sister. So they end up journeying together. She hates the Witch Collector because he does the bidding of the Frost King, but you could tell from the beginning that there's more to this than meets the eye. And over like I don't know, like a week, they start revealing each other's secrets together and going over the things that I liked. I liked that we follow a witch, and it's outside of like, you know, the typical fae romances that we are so used to. And so I love that she's a witch and that he's a witch collector, and I like the revelations that we find out about him, as well as her past and the things that she can do. And I just didn't like how they got so enamored with each other so fast. yes, this book is short. It's 343 pages, I think. By like the end of the 5th day, they already knew a lot about each other, and she already decided that she can't live without him. Same thing with him. I just don't know. The most interesting parts for me was the side characters. I love their little stories more, and I like how they went about things. It's an alternating POV between Reina and Alexis, which is the witch collector, and so we go back and forth, and we have interspersed other POVs from here as well, from the side characters, and I liked being in their POVs more than I did with Reina and Alexis, because every single time we came across anything, all she was thinking about is how attractive he was and how much he was like kind of turning her on, and vice versa. And I'm just like, it was too quick for my liking. The 3rd book has apparently been stuck in publisher limbo. I finally found out that the 3rd book was finally coming out next year, so I was like, this is the perfect time to pick it up then. I think it was just too predictable for my liking. It follows every other formulaic romances out there. I just didn't like the couple enough. It just happened way too quickly. It was very, very insta love. I think I'm just over romancy right now. Like, a romancy either has to be from a world that I already actually love or very different for me to like actually really like it. And I was kind of sad about it because I really did like the fact that we had a disability representation in this book, and I really wanted to like Reina, but I just felt like she read way too one-dimensional. So unfortunately, I did not like this, and I ended up giving it a 3 stars again. You guys, this was a bad month for me, and right now I am scared about all the other fantasy romances that I put on my shelf from like last year or the year before, because I have a feeling that I might not like it unless it's very, very different. The 3rd book that I picked up, which is a part of my summer reads, which is Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick. I think Brooke Averick is an influencer. I think she's a podcaster, and then she recently got a publishing deal, so she wrote this book, and it's been buzzed about so much. Also, I read so many good things about it online that it was like very quirky. It follows a character named Phoebe Berman, obviously, and she's 30 days away from turning 30, and she has never lost her virginity, and she comes out with the goal to lose her virginity. And I guess she's always had kind of intimacy issues ever since she was a little kid, and she's been going to therapy to kind of figure out the issue and talk it out. But we get little glimpses of her therapy sessions, but she doesn't really necessarily listen to her therapist. Her therapist will give her advice, and she goes over the stuff that obviously that she needs to do to get out of this rut, and she doesn't really take it to heart, and she doesn't listen. She keeps acting like she knows better than her therapist. I guess we get like 3 different love interests. We meet them throughout the book, and a lot of them vary from like how long they've known each other. And she's a kindergarten teacher, I think. She's an elementary school teacher, that's for sure. So she comes out like very little kiddish to me. Majority of the book we see her at work and how she deals with the younger kids, and actually she knows how to deal with them and all that stuff. But the thing is, when she tries to work out things with the little kids and tells them to kind of like give them emotional maturity so that they can grow up to be emotional mature adults, she doesn't take the same advice that she gives these kids or try to make them realize into her own life. She thinks she knows better, and she reads so immature. And a couple of these people that she comes across that she wants to kind of lose her virginity to, she reads like a high school girl who has a crush, because all of a sudden like she meets this one guy, and she all of a sudden is in love with him and decides the whole entire time that this is the guy for her, that he's gonna be the one to lose her virginity to, and yada yada yada. I loved her friends. I think her friends were amazing. They're such a core group of people that love her so much that they want to take care of her, and they're really like all about each other, and they see each other multiple times a week. Once a week they go to this like bar where they do trivia night, and they just seem like a solid good group of friends. But there were so many miscommunication aspects of this. Like, Phoebe did not want to speak a lot about the things that she was going through with her friends, especially when like there were different things that they were having problems about, her kind of trying to lose her virginity with certain people. They're very encouraging about it, but when she comes across like a con or anything like that, or an avoidance thing, and they would try to talk to her about it, she would get so angry about it, and then she would like keep things from her friends when she didn't need to. And also she lives with her best friend too, and they're having sort of like this kind of chasm in their relationship too. It's a guy best friend, and she wants to get it back to the way that it was, but she didn't really talk to him about anything. She didn't confront him about anything. The first half of the book, I was kind of getting really like irritated at different things that Phoebe was doing. She would be told advice, and again, she wouldn't take it. And it's just so irritating how she was going about it. She read very immature. I actually really liked the way it ended. I thought her friends were amazing. The way they were so supportive of her, and they're so cute on how focused they were on her love story and everything. I did like the person that she ultimately ended up with. It's just that the way it was executed, it just felt such a cop-out. Like, it automatically eliminated the choices she had because of certain things that were revealed in this book. She should have had the freedom to choose and come to the realization who she wanted rather than like the choice being made for her, if that makes sense. And I just didn't like that aspect of it. Otherwise, the second half of the book was just amazing for me. That's the reason why I gave it higher than like a 3 stars. I gave it a 3.75. Just the whole entire half of that was just so unexpected. And I just wish it focused more on her friendships and then her actually growing up rather than like the choices being made for her. There are points where I felt like she was growing up. There was a scene in here that I was actually really cheering for her and proud of her for standing up for herself, but then it kind of regressed her back to who she was after this scene happened, and I just didn't feel like it was like right for her character, at least to me. Do I recommend you picking this up? If you want like a fun, good rom-com with like great friendship aspect, I still highly recommend, and the writing is actually really good for Brooke's debut novel, but at the same time I just didn't really like the character of Phoebe, so take that with a grain of salt, but I do recommend it. Moving on to the top 2 books I read this month. They were both fantasies, and they're also both featured in my July TBR reading vlog. And so that one is The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Perry. This is a historical fiction fantasy. I absolutely love that aspect of it because it takes place in the middle of World War I and post World War I. So we follow a character named Clover. She unfortunately finds out that her brother, who went off to fight in World War I, was struck by a fairy curse. When they find this news out, magic is actually not that prominent in this world. They didn't know anything about the fairy world. They didn't know about fairies. In fact, they didn't even know there was like magic at all. So she takes it upon herself to go to this magical university so she can find a way to help her brother overcome this fairy curse. And she studies under this witch for like a few months so that she can start attending a university called Camford. It's sort of like a mixture of Oxford plus Cambridge, which is like 2 of the biggest universities in the UK. And she's 18 and she's feeling kind of lonely when she gets there because she finds that there's no one else like her who learned how to do her magic. Everyone else is from prominent families. They're called the families in this book because everyone who has magical powers comes from these certain group of families. They're the ones who attend Camford, and they're the ones who have like the money, the privilege, the kind of leg up to attend these universities. And she's the only one who is called a scholarship witch because she had to earn her right to get into this university. She kind of comes across some people who are from these families. She makes like this friend group where they're all from the families, and she gets enraptured with a lot of like these kind of like events that she goes to. She sees like their houses and stuff, so she kind of like gets taken into this world as a part of the rich people. And so she makes friends. They actually become really good friends. I actually like that their friendship group was less surface level and more like they kind of really talked about serious topics that are happening. She is trying to study about fairy curses and fairies in general, but I guess they outlawed learning about fairies and they took out every single fairy book. In fact, all the families who used to own books about fairies, they kind of took all of those too and basically destroyed them. I guess during World War I, there was like one last fairy door, and the big accident or big incident kind of happened. They decided to close the one last fairy door, get rid of every single fairy thing. So she is finding it really hard to find out any information about fairy curses, and they would be really going against the law if they try to do anything that's involving fairies. So of course she recruits like her friends, tells them why she's there and what she needs, and so they help each other out, and they all kind of have their own reasonings on why they want to know more about these fairy curses. And so some revelations are found out. This book is divided into 4 parts. In the first half of the book, where like the first 2 parts happen, they are told from sort of like a retrospective POV from Clover. Like she talks about how, oh, maybe if we didn't do this, or maybe if we didn't do that, or maybe if I just paid attention more, it wouldn't have resulted in this. That's how it feels. Because once you get into part 3, it becomes like a time jump. It's sort of like 8 years in the future because things went down when they were in the university and things happened, and it kind of like caused their friendship group to break apart a little bit because of this thing. I really actually enjoyed my time with this. I loved how we learned about fairy curses and how everything had like a academic basis of it. So every single time she would learn about like a ritual or something that the fairies do, or some connection they had with doors and why certain things were connected to their world, which was connected to like the fairy doors and everything. It was so cool, sort of like the breakdown of like the science behind it and everything. I really like that aspect. I love the themes of this, where it has a theme of like why magic is gatekept by these families. Why is it that Clover is the only one who came from a lower class and from the human world who could possibly learn magic? Why is it so gatekept from other lower classes? Why are they being so elite elitist about it. And so it also kind of like equates to how people view like higher education, like Ivy Leagues and, you know, prestigious universities. It's sort of like a sort of elitist group that only attends these universities. They are a seemingly pretentious group who wants to gatekeep from other lower classes from attending these universities because of the fact that they don't have enough money, or they didn't have a chance to get education to attend these universities. Because when you attend these universities, if you saw the requirements of these universities, they're a little bit harder for lower class people to get. Not impossible. If you really want to, you can get into it, just like how Clover did it. I just love how it explores that aspect, where it like was parallel to that in our universe, where people are barred from getting to these universities because of different things. And then we also have the aspect of whether or not it's good for you to learn the knowledge of these fairy curses and use your intelligence and the things that you research to create things that you're not supposed to be creating. That just because you learn how to do it, just because you have the information to do it, doesn't mean you should. While they were in school, they just had this sense of arrogance that nothing was going to touch them, especially their group of friends. I really did like H.G. Perry's writing. I can't wait to pick up more of her books, especially if they're written like this. I did like the first half better than the second half though. The second half kind of lost me a bit. Part of the reason why I gave it a 4.5 stars, but I absolutely love this and I recommend this, especially for when we're coming into fall. Moving on to the last book and the best book I've read this month, which is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is a part of duology. It's a YA fantasy. It's upper YA because they delve into like deeper themes in this book and a lot more mature themes. Well, we first meet our character Laszlo, and he is a war orphan, and he gets taken to a monastery to be taken care of by the brothers and everything, by the monks in this, and he kind of doesn't do well in it. He doesn't like the structure. In fact, all he wants to do is go out and play pretend. He just wants to hear about stories. There's an older, more senile brother in the beginning of this book in this monastery. He talks about this story called Weep. It's this magical city where it's like filled with a lot of riches and magic and everything, and so he always goes to this brother to learn more about the stories. So he grows up and he finds that he gets sent on this errand to this library, and he finds that he falls in love with all the books in this library because he's always loved stories. They offer him an apprenticeship to become one of the librarians, and he's been there ever since, and he never has lost his belief of Weep. Everyone has always told him that Weep is not a real city, that he should not be focusing on magical cities, that should not be what he should be thinking about. So one day, a person called the Godslayer comes to their city and says that he's looking for a group of people who needs to come with him to the city of Weep, and basically proves that Weep is there. Laszlo ends up finding a way to get onto this expedition because he's tired of living his life through books. He wants to go out there and actually explore and be an adventurer instead of just reading about adventures and heroes in his books. So when they get there, he finds that Weep is not as magical as he thinks it is. In fact, they're going through this whole entire problem and this whole entire conflict of like different things that are affecting their city, and it's very depressing, very sad, and he finds out more stories about how the gods actually interacted with the people in Weep. So check your trigger warnings because there is some topics in here that are a lot more mature and very like triggering for some people, so definitely check that out. I loved this book so much. I love the way it was written. I always heard that Laini Taylor's writing was absolutely beautiful, but now I get to experience it myself. This book was like filled with so much beautiful lyrical words, and it was told like a fairy tale. I love books that are written in fairy tale form. How it kind of like makes you slowly uncover different things that are happening in the city of Weep, as well as like things that you discover with Laszlo. And what I found out recently, because I noticed that in this book there's a different way that the POVs are formed. It's third person POV, and we mainly follow Laszlo, but we also alternate to a person named Sarai because she is one of the god spawns. There's like this huge carnage that happened when they were like babies that killed all of the gods, because the Godslayer is the one who went and killed all the gods, and they are trying to not let their presence be known because they don't want to be killed like their parents were, and they're trying to deal with the aftermath of this. They're not living well. They have to like scour everywhere to find food and stuff, and she's been hiding in the citadel for like 17 years. I forget how old they are, but she's had this power where I'm not really going to say what that power is. Let's just say she can affect people's nightmares, but the way describe it and how you uncover how her power works, it's so cool. Also, when we're in Laszlo's POV, we kind of have this like sort of godlike kind of POV where we're just looking over all the characters, and we not only hear the thoughts of Laszlo, but we also hear the thoughts of like the other characters when they're speaking to each other in conversation. I think it's called omniscient POV. I just learned this. I didn't even know, because when I was reading it, I noticed that that was told differently in the story form and in narrative form, where we're not only seeing Lasso's POV and his feelings, but we also see the Godslayer's POV and their feelings. And it makes sense for what the kind of story it is, especially on Sarai's part. It's just really cool how we see it, and I loved how different the narration was in this. And I loved the way we can not only see Lasso's like feelings about it, but we also saw the other characters' feelings, but mainly we follow Laszlo this whole entire time. There's so many good themes in this book. The number one theme I took away is that there's not really one right or wrong side in war. Both sides, like, they're both kind of reeling from different actions that each of the sides take. The Godspawns hate the humans for destroying their family and their palace and everything. Now they have to be left on their own to figure stuff out and take care of themselves and survive. Whereas the humans are mad at the gods for the things, the sort of like torment that they put them through. And it was very, very difficult, the things that the gods did, especially the one who was in charge of all the gods, the things he enacted about taking people from these villages and using them for their own means. And it was just so sad. And I love the way this was written. It was so lyrical but not overly descriptive, where it takes away from the story. It has a natural flow to it, which I absolutely loved. I fell in love so hard with Laszlo. He is not your typical MMC where he's tough and he knows how to fight and he's like muscly and everything. He's a very softer MMC. He has like such a pure innocence with the way he sees the world and the way he interacts with people, and he doesn't have like this naivete that you would sense from like someone who's super innocent or someone who's never seen the world outside of like their own like environment. He doesn't have that. I felt like he was such a sponge where he was willing to learn everything and yet be neutral and be kind to people and also stand up for the things that he knew was right. And also he understood, like, he was very perceptive about a lot of things, and the little subplot of romance we get, it was so well done. And I love Laini Taylor's writing. I cannot wait to pick up Muse of Nightmares. If you take one recommendation from me, pick up the duology of Strange the Dreamer. I am so mad at myself for waiting so long to pick up this book. It's written so well and it makes you fall in love with all the characters and it gets your heart going, and I absolutely loved it, and it's one of the better done YAs out there. Okay, so friends, that is it for me. Those are the 6 books I read in July. If you made it this far, let me know down below what books you read in July and if you loved them or hated them, or tell me your opinions about them. And I hope you guys have a better August, and I hope we survive this heat together. I'm ready for fall season to come up. I will not be fast about like my fall content. I will wait till September to start doing it so I can enjoy the last month of summer. I'm trying to soak it in before fall starts. But anyways, friends, if you like this video, like and subscribe. It really does help my channel a lot, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!